I was born in Spanish Honduras in the year of 1933. I was born in a small village named Milanga. The boy grew up, never going to school, whether kindergarten, high school, grade school, or whatever. Became a merchant seaman. But by the time he became a merchant seaman, he was very deadly ill. He had diabetes. He had asthma from birth. He was impotent at 28. And at 30, he had diabetes, asthma, obesity, and insanity. And with the help of Mexican people, I was cured. I decided to enter the field of natural medicine.
Can I interrupt you for a quick second?
Of course.
I'm sorry. When you started off, you were referring to yourself in the third person, and you switched to the first person. Do you see who you were earlier in your life as sort of a different person, as though you've sort of become yourself in the second half of your life?
I was always a different person. I disagree with everything. I disagree with everything. Everything I heard, I disagreed with.
Right.
And I was 14 years of age when I said I was going to work. I was working since I was 11 because my grandmother raised me. And she was my responsibility to take care of paying the rent, buying her clothes, buying the food. So, but I was tall and I was very, I suppose, sensible. So I just grew up, and at 14, I made a statement that I was going to do something to help humanity. But when I made that statement, I also knew that I was going to come up against the established or prevailing philosophy of life. That I knew at 14 years of age. But I didn't know that one day that I would become the person that I'm known for today as being the healer. I didn't know that. But even before I became the healer, I didn't have a girlfriend until I was 21 because I disagreed with what I saw. And even now, my interrelationship with women, I don't believe that there is a woman that could rightfully say that they love me because of the way that I live and the way that I see things. And I'm not really upset or bothered by that. But I live different. I see different. I feel different. And I don't like to share that with most people because it is so far away. You don't want to disturb anyone. But even the healing that I bring to the world, look at that. My first patient, my very first patient, I was a steam engineer working for the county of Los Angeles. And this blind man had heard that I was experimenting with these plants. And his neighbor said, well, why don't you take it? And he took the plants, and in 2 days he was seeing. And he was blind for 11 years. That shook me because I couldn't explain to the world the mechanics behind this blind man seeing.
What were your thoughts when you formulated the
compound?
Right.
The way that the compounds came into existence, was being a steam engineer, I knew that the pH value, the pH factor, had a lot to do with healing. And the herbalists then, like the herbalists today, are unaware that the pH factor has a lot to do with it. Meaning this, I said that if God tell us that the herbs are for the healing of the nations, in the book of Genesis, in the book of Ezekiel, in the book of Exodus, and the book of Revelation, it says that the herbs are for the healing of the nations. Then as I go further into the history of medicine, this is what I found, that the great Hippocrates used herbs to cure disease, and that he cured every disease known to man. This man was curing every disease in Greece 365 years before Christ was even born. So when people tell us that only Jesus heals, you remind them that Hippocrates was here long before he was born, 300 years. So I said, if Jesus cured with herbs, Hippocrates cured with herbs, and God said the herbs, then what's up? Why aren't we curing with herbs today? So I said, One day when I went to work, my wife and I was talking all night. We were engaged in this conversation about these herbs. So my aunt said to me that there could be something locked someplace that prevent us from accomplishing the goals that Jesus Christ and Hippocrates accomplished. When I went to work that night, I found it. I laughed. Oh, I was so happy. I was extremely happy because I said, it is required of us to maintain the pH at 6.9. At 7, which is the neutral zone, pH of 7 is neutral. And if it is slightly on the acid side, it's 6.9. And the reason why we maintain the pH at 6.9 is to keep the tubes of the boiler clean, that there will be no life form in there. But if the pH is 7.1, oh, now you're going to experience life. Life form will begin to accumulate in the tubes of the boiler, preventing the radiant heat or the convection heat from reaching the tubes. I said that if life was so powerful that it could exist in a temperature of 450 degrees, then the herbs that heal would have to be alkali on 7 plus instead of acid 6.9. Then I begin to check the pH of all the herbs. I begin to test it. I test comfrey, acid. I test garlic, acid. I also tested aloe vera, St. John wort, rose hips, comfrey. All of these things are very acid. Carrot juice is extremely acid, yet the healers in New York then and now are still recommending these acid foods. So I said, well, let me investigate further to see which are the alkali herbs. And I begin to see that burdock, yellow dock, also the elderberry, these are alkali plants. Also the Virginia snake root, that's alkali. One has to know the herbs that are alkali opposed to the herbs that are acid. This today is not really considered, nor do they follow that particular, road or understanding, because the herbalists of today are recommending peppermint. Peppermint is very acid. Peppermint freezes the brain. Some even recommend peppermint oil. Peppermint oil is extremely caustic. So now we have this kind of information in front of us being disseminated and carried out. So there's confusion in the population. But the one thing that my supporters or the people that helped me, that counseled me, they said to me, Sebi, the one thing that you have in your favor is that you have cure and you are curing the diseases that others are not curing. So that is the barometer that tells us that the acid herb that they're using prevent them from reaching the goal that they're pursuing. It was my steam engineering experience that helped me in herbology to understand the herb that God made. Yes, it has to be made by God. If we eat something that God didn't make, we are running the risk of disease. Then we're going to be angry. Like I were at only 30 years of age, I was extremely angry. So I didn't know that my mother wanted me to be a preacher. And I didn't want to go into the church. I said, who, me be a preacher? No, I'm not going to be a preacher. And look what I'm doing now. Look what I'm doing. My mother, I called her on my birthday 2 days ago, and she was laughing. She was laughing. She said, you see, what I wanted you to do, what I see you doing, you're doing it. Only because people are being healed. That is the work of a shepherd.
So if we were to sort of go back and trace everything, as a young man, you had a sense that you would heal people. You didn't know quite how you would do it. You went through to become a young man in your early 20s, and you were still unhealthy yourself, but you started to look into herbs?
No. I didn't look into herbs in my 20s. I didn't know anything about herbs in my 20s.
No.
I made a statement at 14 that I was going to do something to help humanity.
Right.
But I didn't know it was going to turn out to be these herbs. So when I was sick, I was 30.
Okay.
And I got the help from the Mexicans that helped me. And then I proceed to pursue it. And I was working as a steam engineer at the time that every day I would go to work and God would talk to me and said, how could you be healed of all those dreadful diseases and you're going to hold that from humanity? And I would go to work and I would see these turbines and these condensers and these boilers and I would get so angry. And that was when I stepped up my research.
You see these boilers, what would make you angry about them?
Because I want to get away from them, because I want to go into the herbs.
Okay.
But I was then 47 years of age. I was 47. And I was 10 years on the job, seniority. And I was making a lot of money. And I had a wife and 2 babies and 1 on the way, and I quit my job. God said, you're going to quit. If you're going to starve, you're going to die starving, but you're going to quit this job. And I left. And I was put in jail, and all the whole bit that happened to me in New York. I was arrested in St. Martin one night. I was taken to jail in Curacao. Oh, it's been a journey, but it's been nice because it was like a test. I remember being down to only $400. When I started this business, I only had $400. I started this healing journey with $400. And here I am today. A little girl in New York named Haja that was brought to us with a hole in her heart. She's now 16. A little girl was brought to me in Atlanta that was blind from age 8 to age 11 with a tumor on her frontal lobe. She no longer has the tumor on her frontal lobe. Her name is Mecca. And there's a little girl in Minnesota. Her name is Akila Stroud. She no longer has sickle cell anemia. And a month ago, I gave a lecture in New York, and a young lady came forth and said, well, I don't have lupus anymore. So these kinds of things tells us that we, the black race, has the answer to the world's health. We have the answer to their disease state. But we are afraid to take that responsibility because we live in fear. We fear. We scared of white man. We scared of God. We say that we fear God. I don't know why people fear God.